The sad day when steam production ceased in Britain naturally captured the attention of the national press, TV and the newsreels.
Swindon and a new locomotive that's already historic. The last steam loco to be built by British Railways. The official unveiling revealed its appropriate name. Evening Star points to the inevitable end of a very popular age, the age of steam. It's always been locos like this that made boys want to be engine drivers. Perhaps boys of today are mad about diesels, but they're not the same thing at all, in my opinion. Evening Star is the last of a long and honourable line, the last of the steamers.
From its first day, Evening Star was inevitably earmarked for preservation when withdrawn. But, along with many others of its class, this splendid engine had a scandalously short life of just 5 working years. Such waste did not reflect well either on railway management or politicians, whatever the pressures they were under. In the 1960s, the writing was very clearly on the wall for steam. One noticeable symptom was the relegation of once proud express engines to humble freight duties and their filthy, unkempt condition. For many rail fans, these were indeed sad days. It's a tribute to the robustness of the steam locomotive that so many kept going with so little maintenance and care. Riddle's wartime WDs in particular still chuffed and clanked their way around the country in the most appalling state. And these were the engines once destined to be pushed into the sea as soon as the war was over. Diesels and electrics swept all before them, and for the final year from July 1967, the only remaining steam-worked area of Britain was the North West. Even in the last years, spectacular steam action like this could still be enjoyed, and these water troughs at Dillicar between Preston and Carlisle on the main line to Scotland were in daily use, virtually to the end of steam. The line includes the climb over Shap Fell, in steam days the best known mainline gradient in Britain, with its 4 miles of 1 in 75 northbound from T-Bay. The Weil Fell countryside, where most heavy goods trains needed a banking engine, made a marvellous backdrop for cameramen catching these poignant moments of history. By the spring of 1968, the coming end of steam had even caught the imagination of the general public. The Iron Horse was to be consigned to the history books, and a series of specials and charter trains ran to commemorate the event. Many of the engines on these specials were old favourites, like the Stanier Black Fives. And, as the last few trains passed, enthusiasts consoled each other. Leading engine Oliver Cromwell, complete with a suitable wreath, was the last of the Britannia Pacifics in service. And so to the very last day of steam, Sunday, August the 11th, 1968. The final run was the infamous 15 guinea special, which was double-headed on its return portion over the Settle and Carlisle line. It would be 10 years before steam would again cross the famous Ribblehead Viaduct. This massive structure, a real icon of the steam age, also came close to being discarded some 15 years later when the line was proposed for closure by British Rail. And so, steam under BR heads home for the very last time. 44871 on the front lives on in preservation, but the second loco didn't make it. It was scrapped after starring in the Virgin Soldiers. Elsewhere in Britain too, steam had already paid the ultimate price.
Good old steam locos, nothing to touch them. Their days are numbered and the real veterans are being broken up. Here at Swindon, where many thousands have been built over the past 100 years or so, the old-timers are being turned into scrap. Rather sad, really, and it does seem a harsh fate after all the faithful service they've given. Most of this lot date from the 1920s, but they won't be quite forgotten. There's a big demand for the old number plates as souvenirs for collectors. Still, progress is progress, I suppose, and British Railways must diesel on.
Scrapyards around the country made a lot of money in the 1960s cutting up locomotives. Ironically, this one near Kettering in the East Midlands later became a giant graveyard for motor cars, which had been built using the metal from old steam engines. At Barry in South Wales, Di Woodham's yard built hundreds of engines, but instead of cutting them up straight away, the gas axe fell first on the much easier goods wagons, which just kept on arriving. So the steam engines stood, quietly rusting away, and incredibly most were still there in the early 1970s, when a number of branches began to be reopened privately, and the preservationists started looking round for engines needed to run them. Geography had meant that the lion's share of Barry engines were former Great Western and Southern types, but there was a surprising smattering of others, including one or two most unlikely candidates, like the one off Duke of Gloucester, minus one of its cylinders and valve gear, which had been donated to the Science Museum in London. This original Bullied Pacific has huge holes in its air-smoothed casing, but that's very much a surface wound, and incredibly, nearly all the 200 engines at Barry have survived into a new life, many to steam again.